Well, another game, another New York Giants lost. The Giants fall to 0-8 at home this season. I mean, I think that's got to be like a record worst since the 1970s. Because, I mean, they were bad in the 90s, the Giants. But I don't know. I just don't think they were this bad. I know they had the 70s era with, the late 70s and Joe Pisarcik and all those different guys. But, no, I mean, it's pretty bad. You guys know that. Excuse me. I know that. Yeah, this team is not good. This team is not good, and it's not like I came to that conclusion now. I came to that conclusion multitude of weeks ago. And every time I think to myself, just one little thought. After each and every game that the Giants lose, how can, if possible, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the year. I don't have a crystal ball in my hand. I don't have any sources inside the organization. I'm thinking to myself, if one of these two guys, right, if one of these two dudes in Brian Dable or Joe Shane, it would more likely be Joe Shane because GMs tend to last longer than coaches do. Coaches get like 3 years in the NFL. Why should any of the two come back? Like, why would they come back knowing they have this disaster class on their resume? And they've gone every single year since their peak year. And now they've regressed to 2 wins. I say it every show. 9 wins, 6 wins, 2 wins. I mean, I know there's a couple people out there that say, and like majority of the fan base, I think, just wants a new slate because this is the worst season, I think, in franchise history. There's no doubt about that. But there are a couple people out there, select few, that either turned their lights on late and said, oh, well, now Joe Shane needs to be fired. Now Brian Dable needs to be fired. Or they still kind of think that Joe Shane should be given a chance to pick his quarterback and his coach. I mean, kind of already did that, right? And usually, I hate this big circle, full circle argument because we always have to go back to it. You find yourself spinning in circles as a Giants fan and someone who has to cover the team on a multitude of occasions, spinning in circles and talking in circles because you don't know what to talk about. I mean, we're going to go, what are we going to go into the depths? Oh, the Ravens did this and the Giants played this very well. Or they did this horribly. I mean, of course, there's some things to dissect. But, like, why? The team stinks, right? Personnel stinks. The coaching stinks. Week after week, it's this nonsense. And this is the first year since 1992, which predates me by about not 13 years. I'm not that young. Predates me by about 11 years that the New York Football Giants had 4 starting quarterbacks in a single season. At the time, it was Kent Graham, Jeff Hostetler. I don't think Dave Brown was around that time. Maybe he was. And definitely Phil Simms. So the Giants had 4 quarterbacks in 92, I believe it was, or maybe 93. I think it was 92 because I believe 92 was the last season of Phil Simms. And then they released him. And then they went with Hostetler, and that was a failed thing. But I don't think the Giants were that bad in the 90s. They had at least, 4 or 5 wins. This team sits at 2. And to be completely honest with you, there's some people that speculate, oh, well, the Giants are tanking. I don't know. It's pretty hard to really sell me on the fact that they're tanking and they're just not a bad football team. Because if you're tanking, it kind of gives you the excuse of, well, they're tanking, so they're not really that bad. They're just a few pieces off. No, I think the Giants are a couple pieces off. I think more than. Because, you look at the injuries the Giants face, and of course injuries happen. Dexter Lawrence, a multitude of guys. But you look at the depth behind those guys, and that's not even good. Which, again, points to the personnel department and Joe Shane and all those different cats. Obviously, Joe Shane making the decisions primarily, with Brian Dable as his sidekick. But, I don't know. 3 games left. I've never been happier to get a season over with. Now, at the end of the year, I will see myself whether I will be intrigued going into next year. I could also be numb. Intrigued going into next year. Or just like, oh, so they're coming back. Oh, they're all coming back next year. Okay, another season fucking wasted. Because, this is awful. Now, I don't know. People could say, oh, well, the Raiders are doing bad, or this team's doing that bad, or that team is doing bad. Well, I don't know. It just seems like out of those select teams that are doing really bad, I feel like the Giants had the most expectations. The Jets, yeah, but who gives a shit about the Jets? Daniel Jones and Malik Neighbors. Oh, Jalen Hyatt, he's popping in training camp. Oh, that offensive line is rebuilt. Oh, the Giants don't need Saquon. They got their running backs. That vaunted defense is scary. Oh, Deontay Banks in his second year. Some of these people, and I will say this, right? Normally, I don't agree with the national media, but the national media was, to my knowledge, pretty right coming into the season about the New York Giants, because last year you had your mix of, oh, they're going to be good, they're going to be bad. They obviously weren't right in 2022, but in 2024 they were right about the Giants. Now, I would like you to find one person personally that predicted the Giants at 2-12, and even further that had 4 starting quarterbacks and etc. But most people, right? Most people saw that this team was not going to go far. You had some people saying, they're going to win 10 games, they're going to win 9 games, they're going to win 8 games. I said 6. I'm off of that by 4. So, as I said, I didn't think they were going to be this bad. But I think one of the problems that the New York Giants have presented themselves with and have tried to sell the fan base on, whether you like this guy, whether you dislike this guy, whether you're in the middle about this guy, whatever, right? Is I think they've tried to pin Joe Shane and Brian Dable. They've tried to, I think it's more so Joe Shane. They've tried to pin this season on a Daniel Jones X Factor. Because Daniel Jones didn't perform, that's why we stink. Not because we didn't get a backup quarterback in here. Not because multitude of things, not named quarterback. Because it's kind of interesting to me. We could play the what-if game on multiple fronts. What if the Giants had Jameis Winston? What if the Giants had this? What if the Giants had that? But I think it all goes, you could play your what-ifs on both sides, and it's a lose-lose situation for the Giants. And again, I hate talking about this because it's a repetitive point. But let's just say you do have Jameis Winston, right? How many wins is Jameis Winston winning with this roster? The running back, the running back room, okay, right? Tyrone Tracy. I would like to think he gets more production offensively, but are we talking I think this team is at 10 points per game right now. I want to say 10. I could be wrong, but somewhere around the 10 point per game mark, which all-time low for this team that I've seen in the last number of years. Yeah, points per game right now, they sit at 14.9. So I underestimated them slightly. They're about 15 points per game, essentially. So how much would that go up? Because you still have the defensive injuries. You still have Kayvon Thibodeau really not doing much for anything. You still have a pretty barren secondary. That's the problem. That is the absolute issue. And compound that with the fact that you wouldn't even know, because guess what? You didn't do that, right? I see people across social media talking about how Tim Boyle, he was pretty good, right? The Giants could potentially have some fucking fake fun with him because he threw a couple of passes with anticipation. He threw for 123 yards. He, touchdown to Malik Neighbors for the first time since before Seattle. I mean, like, the fact that we're celebrating that, not me personally, but the fact that some people are celebrating that is like, it's not necessarily the fans' fault, because I will really try to avoid that route. But when you look at it from a different lens, it's absolutely the Giants' fault that we're trying to recreate, the Tommy DeVito era with Tim Boyle. It's absolutely their fault because they haven't given us a good product. So we have to find this low quality fucking mulch to say, yeah, Tim Boyle, fake fun, right? And they've just had this carousel of clownery at quarterback. They go to DeVito. They embarrass Jones, which was a good move on Daniel Jones to say, yeah, I'm going to play safety. And then he knew how was it going to play out with the media. He's not stupid as we think he is. And then you say, okay, DeVito starts, and then he gets injured against the Bucks. You go to Lock for Thanksgiving. And then for the Saints game, you still have Lock. And then you go back to DeVito for the Ravens game. And then he gets hurt, and you have Tim Boyle. It just shows how low the Giants have gotten and what a disaster class Joe Schoen has put on in the quarterback room. So not only did you not pick a quarterback in this draft, not only did you avoid that route, could have picked the Penix, could have picked the Knicks, could have picked a serious developmental guy, like someone with actual traits of being a half-decent backup in the NFL. No, I'm not talking about Tommy DeVito here. I'm talking about, maybe Devin Leary if you like him, Spencer Rattler at ETC. Show us a little bit, hey, this guy is better than DeVito. If Daniel Jones fails, this guy is the guy. And Brian Dable's a quarterback guru, so he's going to get more out of him, but that doesn't mean he's the all-time answer. You're just throwing a pick out in the wind. Now, did the Giants have the luxury of doing that? Is whether you'd like to argue in the mirror with yourself or not, because they still at the time had holes on this roster. You could also argue that the tight end pick of Theo Johnson was absolutely a luxury because, hey, guess what? And Neighbors too. Not saying we didn't need a wide receiver one, but again, there's other needs. But, not that I dislike Theo Johnson 100%, but Daniel Bellinger, I don't know what they think is so bad about him. I don't know that, what they don't like about him. I feel like he's going to be a guy that does absolutely nothing here, and then he goes off to another team and he puts up stats. And then we're going to be like, this kid's rookie year, he was really doing something. And then the last 2 years, the coaching staff just didn't know how to use him. So I don't know what bad vibes he gives his coaching staff, because there's other players on this team that get run out there week after week after week, and they stink. They absolutely fucking stink. So that just puzzles me. But going back to my central point, about the quarterback room. You didn't pick a Rattler. You didn't pick, any. They haven't drafted any competition for Daniel Jones. And I know they had Tyrell Taylor the first 2 years. They haven't drafted any competition or somebody as a project in the whole time that they have been here. And that is sad. Because you could say, oh, well, Mara forced him to. Like, we don't know. We don't know. I would love to, give these guys a cushion. Sarcastically, I would love to give them a cushion. But I'm not going to because they get paid millions of dollars for decisions that have gone absolutely awry. Again, they didn't pick a quarterback in these drafts. They proceeded to stick with Drew Lock as their backup, who, by the way, looks, for some reason, worse than he did last year in Seattle. You stuck with Tommy DeVito. It's not like here's the problem. He didn't go out on some high note last year. It's not like he won that game against the Eagles. It was Tyrod Taylor. He had the winning streak. He stunk against the Saints. He regressed. Then against the Eagles, he was benched at halftime. So you knew that, hey, this kid needs work. But, this, that, and the third, I don't know if we're going to, be able to build around this kid or just keep him as a backup in the future. That's why I found it so controversial that the New York Giants decided to keep this guy instead of, placing him on the practice squad or something like that. Like, I would not say, oh, well, the Giants didn't trade DeVito for a 7th-round pick. That's roster mismanagement. I wouldn't have given a shit. Personally, me. Because I know DeVito said at the end of preseason, well, there are definitely a lot of teams interested in me. I'm just paraphrasing here. But the fact that you have to go all the way down to QB number 4, and I'm not even vouching for Tim Boyle, because Boyle stinks. I mean, you look at his college record, it's awful when he went to UConn and whatever other college he went to. Obviously, stunk it up last year with the Jets. I would like to think he has a job in the NFL just because of Aaron Rodgers. I could be wrong, though, because obviously, he started his career out in Green Bay, and maybe Rodgers liked him enough to give him a job. I don't know. It's just weird how some of these players repeatedly get jobs. But the fact that you disqualified all of the options in March and April, and you stuck with Locke, and you started DeVito over him because either he wasn't that good or you didn't want to pay the incentives, and then you go back to Locke, but the best production at quarterback since Daniel Jones is Tim Boyle, who's getting paid practice squad salary. He's on the active roster now because John Runyon's done for the season. So, I don't know. This whole plan of sink or swim, blame the season on Daniel Jones, I don't think again, I said this in the beginning, I don't think the fan base buys into that. I think that's a stupid strategy. And it's a strategy we'll see at the end of the season. It should get you fired. Like, maybe make the excuse if you want to that, oh, well, they didn't pick their quarterback or this, that, and the other thing. It seemed like John Mara in Hard Knocks was still able to cope with the fact that, DJ may not be the answer. So, you guys are free to draft a quarterback at your will. And, of course, he was only talking about first-round quarterbacks because, we're talking about the trade-ups and stuff like that. But it doesn't mean you couldn't get a guy later or draft a more quality backup quarterback. I should say sign a more quality backup quarterback because Drew Lock stinks. So, not just that, and also as well, the Hard Knocks stuff was absolutely pitiful. Like, I have never seen Hard Knocks play more of a role into somebody's job being taken away than this year with Joe Shane and Brian Dable. More so Joe Shane because of his arrogance and his lack of read on any market at all. And I feel like, even though everybody looks at the running back position, Saquon Barkley, they let him go, et cetera, et cetera. I think one of the things you got to look at is not just how he let, what's his face, Xavier McKinney walk. It's how he misread the options, because he opted to keep Dane Belton, who didn't get a lot of playing time last year. Opted to keep Jason Pinnock, who he's a decent safety, but he's limited. And you draft Tyler Nubin, who's supposed to be this ball hawk before he gets on IR, and he stinks. Like, he makes a few tackles in the box, but what else does he do? Right? He hasn't shown a lot. Like, McKinney didn't show too many things because he was hurt in 2020, but he was still able to put up numbers and make some nice plays. Like, he had the game-winning interception against the Cowboys and Andy Dalton. And then you saw him ascend. But my instinct, if you will, is that it's not going to be an ascension. It's going to be a difficult road for Tyler Nubin because you won't have the defensive coordinator that drafted you. So there's that. So, yeah, some of my offensive notes for the football Giants is that obviously, Tim Boyle took over for DeVito. And I will admit, right, you have to admit either when you're wrong or have to give somebody credit when credit's due, is DeVito, I don't know how much longer he has in the NFL, just my personal opinion. He'll probably, go around a couple places and get some tryouts. But it seems like he always just looks for the first receiver rather than the first read. Because there were a couple of misses, like Jalen Hyatt was open on, and DeVito just didn't look at him. He looked at Malik Neighbors, and, Malik Neighbors got his attention, but you're also disregarding other guys because those guys were open, et cetera, et cetera. And, DeVito, he didn't look great. There was a couple of missed throws like that third down situation where he overthrew Tyron Tracy, almost intercepted by the Ravens defense. I mean, again, like you look at his stats, 10 to 13. That's not bad, completion percentage. 68 yards. That's not bad. But, like, you have to actually watch the game to, see that shit. So, Tim Boyle, he did better than Tommy DeVito. It looks like Drew Lock could start this week against the Falcons. It is a Dome Stadium. I don't think that's going to have any impact on the Giants because usually would say, Dome Stadiums kind of go out there and they reinforce the passing game more than they do the running game. Now, if the Giants had competent quarterback play, and maybe if the Giants had like a semi-competent Daniel Jones, I'd say, okay, then the Giants maybe have a chance to win against the Falcons, but they don't, right? As I'm recording this, the Falcons are up 15-3. Not like the Falcons have some prolific offense either, because Kirk Cousins is getting to that age, and he's coming off of a major injury. He's not what he used to be, plain and simple. But that doesn't mean the Giants are a good enough team to beat him. So, Tim Boyle takes over DeVito. I really like... Now, here's my issue with one particular thing. This is just me. People say, Malik Neighbors. I really love watching Malik Neighbors because, he's one of the bright spots in this season. Right? He's one of the bright spots. Here's where I'm going to agree and I'm going to disagree. And this is not a Neighbors' fault. Not Neighbors' fault at all. He is on pace for 1,000 yards. He's got 99 left till 1K. Though he's hurt physically. And he was out for 2-3 games. So there's that. But my problem where I can't really have as much fun, and again, this is not a Neighbors thing, is the fact that the Giants have been shit for so many years, and the next two kind of really compound with each other, is the shitty quarterback play. Like, it's not exciting to watch fucking Drew Lock or Tommy DeVito or Tim Boyle throw to him. Daniel Jones to a certain extent, but at least you saw Neighbors have like this this production with Daniel Jones. And, like, it was the extreme a little bit towards the end of the Jones tenure because it was like every pass is going to Malik Neighbors. Like, you don't want that. But now it's like Drew Lock and DeVito and Boyle throwing in passes. I mean, like, for the stats, yeah, it's great. You know, Neighbors, first year, over 1,000. He could really do something once you get a quarterback in there. But I really can't get excited. Like, I when I watch these games, I can't get excited. Oh, Malik Neighbors is doing this. And again, it is no way Malik Neighbors' fault. It's just an effect of the Giants sucking and their personnel decisions sucking. So, and of course, once again, Neighbors can't choose the quarterback that he's getting the passes from. Now, I will say this. Over the last few weeks, the Giants' running game has suffered. Absolutely suffered. Now, could you say it's a Daniel Jones effect because Daniel Jones at least gave the defense something to think about? You could say that. And honestly, I wouldn't blame you if you said that. But let's look at these rushing stats, right? You had Tyrone Tracy go for major numbers against Seattle. Cincinnati, they didn't do well. Tyrone Tracy against the Eagles, 23 yards. That's not great. 145 against the Steelers. That's pretty good. You know, that's a season high. Tracy, 66 against Washington. Not great. And then you had Tracy, 103 against Carolina. Also the fumble. But nonetheless, as far as that goes, pretty solid numbers. And he's still on pace for over 1,000 scrimmage. However, you look at these last few weeks. 42 rushing yards against Tampa Bay. He didn't even get the highest rushing leader on the Giants against Dallas and New Orleans. And he had 31 yards against Baltimore. Now, Dallas's rush defense was supposed to be shit. New Orleans' rush defense supposed to be shit. I don't know what Tampa Bay's defense was supposed to look like. I forget. But, I mean, he's one guy. Now, again, I would have to look at the intricacies. But his play has definitely dropped off. Again, I don't know if that's him, the offensive line, the changes, and all these other different things. It could definitely be the offensive line, but the offensive line hasn't been a complete disaster. They do need depth, but hasn't been a complete disaster. I think it's the quarterback play because teams don't really give a shit about the Giants' running game anymore. And, I mean, sometimes they'll stack the box, but sometimes they really won't have to because, you know, the guys up front occasionally don't do a good job. But, I mean, it's just a bad product on offense overall. And to where, I don't know if this should piss me off or should just make me, like, not think about it anymore, is the Slayton thing. Because Slayton's production has dropped off. He was leading receiver a number of times in the first half of the season. And then you come down to these last 4 games with the different quarterbacks. Slayton against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 2 targets, no yards whatsoever. Go to him against the Dallas Cowboys, right? What does Slayton do? He's got 2 receptions for 8 yards. Go to the next game against New Orleans. What does Slayton do? He has 2 catches for 27 yards. Okay. And then you go to this past game against Baltimore. What does Slayton do? He's got 1 catch for 16 yards. I'm not expecting Slayton to have these great numbers, but his production has definitely went down, and I feel like that could affect his market a little bit. I feel like that could affect his market in a bad way, which kind of, I don't know how to, as I said, I don't know how to feel on it because I could be really mad and be like, Joe Shane should have traded his ass when the stock was high. Or it's, well, Slayton's stock is low anyway. He's going to go to a team. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, but I just like to make that note. Tracy and Slayton, their production has dropped since the change of quarterback. So, as far as to finish up the offense, 3 sacks allowed. Aaron Stinney started at left guard because John Runyon's done for the season. If you guys heard me in the pregame, I personally said I want Jake Kubis out there because at least you get to see what a youngin does rather than Stinney, who's a guy that's not going to be around next year and he's a vet. But it is what it is. It seemed like they did a quality job. Nothing too noticeable. And even then, if it's noticeable, like, who the fuck cares, right? This team stinks. So, real quickly, guys, if you haven't already, go to SeatGeek.com if you're going to a concert, a ball game, or you need parking passes for a tailgate that hopefully you willingly enjoy. Get $20 off your online order, your first online order, with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx. That is Big Blue in the Bronx in all caps for $20 off your online order. Now, the defense. This, I kind of set the bar a little high for this defense coming into this game because I did say, I think it's going to be like 26-10. Which, in turn, I wasn't too far off. I was off by like 5 points in differentials. But, man, like, the passing game took so much of a deter that it's not even funny. I mean, the safety play was fucking horrendous. Guys were getting open left and right. And, again, it's so weird, right? Coming into this game, I expect the Giants to kind of get railroaded against the run. And, the numbers aren't great, but it's not like they were totally railroaded. They're like, Derrick Henry, he's got 127 yards against the Giants. No, he's got 67, 14 carries, 4.8 per pop. Not terrible with a 13-yard run as his longest. Lamar Jackson did a little bit more burning. 6 carries, 65 yards, 21 was his longest carry, and 10.8 yards per carry, which probably averages around the 5 mark if you do the math on that. But that's like, okay, right? You expect that. You expect a little bit more. But there were some times that the Giants played well against the run. Again, they didn't blow the house off until you look at, the total numbers and whatnot. But the way they surprised me in a bad fashion is the way they got absolutely obliterated in the air. Rashad Bateman, the former pick from, I don't think it was it was Minnesota. He came out of Minnesota, right? He had a gold jacket game against the Giants. 26.7 yards per reception. And 2 catches out of the 3 that he had were touchdowns. 80 yards on 3 catches. And there was one play where he's wide the hell open, right, on the right side of the field. He makes the catch. Pinnock and Stroman have the shot to go tackle him. Pinnock misses. And then Stroman miss. And then everybody missed. And then Simmons finally tackles him, but he's in the end zone. I mean, he had a gold jacket game against the Giants. Zay Flowers really didn't hurt the Giants that bad. I mean, it was a couple small catches. Justice Hill, I think he was wide open. He had a nice little stream on the right side of the sideline and go in the end zone. So that was one of his touchdowns. I believe it was a 27-yard reception. You had Mark Andrews wide open in the middle of the field. And not to mention, you had Devontae Walker, who had been inactive most of the season. First catch is a touchdown in the NFL in this game. By the way, a little shout out to Mr. Brian Mansell, who actually got to interview Devontae Walker at the Senior Bowl. So if you're a Ravens fan, check out his channel in the description for the Devontae Walker interview. But, I mean, what do I have to say? And the fact, like, there was so many plays. I'd like to give Micah McFadden flowers because he did play, like, half decent this game. But there was a couple different plays where he was just off. The Giants were just off tackling-wise. Like, it was bad. And, again, it's like half of it or most of it for the, like, under-talented guys. Like, I can't blame Elijah Chapman and Corey Durden and Elijah Garcia for not getting to the passer, not staying consistent. I can't do that because they were not brought in here as a part of a building piece. They were brought in because of the lack of depth on the defensive line, and they were brought in here because of injury. Kayvon Thibodeau makes one fucking tackle in the game. Now, I get it was his birthday and he dressed up all nicey nice, same like Tommy DeVito. But, found it really interesting. These players, they dress up all nicey nice and then they make no plays on the field whatsoever. Tamon Fox and Kayvon Thibodeau had the same stat line, one tackle. I really can't get behind that. I can't. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, some of these other cats had one tackle. Like Chapman, okay. Like, he's a UDFA. I don't expect too much. Anthony Johnson, who everybody's claiming, oh, yeah, great waiver wire claim. He really didn't do much. So it seems like the tackling was front-loaded. And, Dane Belton got a sack because Josh Johnson, was holding the ball too long. But he even just, like, I can't really get behind him as a safety. Like, he doesn't really do much on the field for me. And there were days, like, after the draft where we revisited it, we're like, what's the point of this pick? What's the point of Dane Belton? Like, what is he going to do on the football field? And then, as his rookie season went on, we gave him a cushion because I'm like, hey, he had 2 interceptions against Davis Mills. And then, was it 2 interceptions against Davis Mills? I definitely remember the first one that was like near the end zone. There was another one somewhere. And then he picks off Stafford twice. It's like, okay, well, when this guy's on the field, he's a ball hawk. And then this year, he's nothing. And he doesn't even get the playing time. So, is it defensive coordinator? Like, was he drafted for Wink? Or was he drafted just not in the spot he should have been? And not by the Giants. That's the part where, like, Mike McFadden, he's been a hit for his status. Dane Belton really hasn't. So, that's a gross dereliction of duty, again, by Joe Schoen. Talked about the running game. Great, not good. Good, not great, considering. See, again, I'm just so in the middle, and I'm so, like, numb from these personnel decisions that I can't even properly evaluate some things because I'm like, I did rip Greg Stroman for a couple of missed tackles, and, he went into the medical tent, came out, and hopefully he was healthy. And, I mean, Drew Phillips was hurt, Cordell Flott was hurt, Banks was hurt. I don't know, like, you could go so many avenues with the evaluation. Because I feel like, they played solid last week against the Saints, but that was a piss-poor offense. They definitely could have played better. It's not like, this Ravens offense is just too talented, which it is. Todd Monken's done a great job. But there were plays to be made on the football field by the New York Football Giants on defense, and those plays weren't made, hence the 35 points that were given up. So we could sit here and say, well, the defense is doing a good job with Stroman in there and Art Green and Elijah Garcia and this and the third. Well, another point to bring up on Sergio Schoen is the run defense looks better now than it has any point in the season based off of the last 2 games, maybe 3. And that's even going back to when you had Dexter Lawrence in, which is not a gross dereliction of duty on Dexter Lawrence. It's a gross dereliction of duty on Joe Schoen because the higher you invested in guys, your frontline guys, you put at the front of the roster like a Davidson and a Nacho and all these cats. Why is Elijah Garcia, Corey Durden, and Casey Rogers and Elijah Chapman, like, why are they playing much better? And don't tell me, they have the supporting cast of Burns and Thibodeau in the running game. Don't fucking give me that shit because that's just a blatant lie. That's just a lie. That is a lie because they didn't show up in the run defense the first half of the season when we were getting totally shamed. So I don't know. I there's like so many avenues again, and I'm sorry for the stuttering and mumbling, but like you could give them credit because like the guys that are not doing, they're not supposed to be here. They're doing a good job, but at the same time, that's a gross dereliction of duty on the guys that are here with primary investments and the guys who made the investments in them. So That's my opinion. But that's all I got, folks. Hopefully I didn't take much of your time up. First 20 minutes was big picture type crap. Hope you guys are keeping that blood pressure down. Hopefully you're just like lack of emotion like I am and waiting for this season just to finally be over. You know, try to avoid the stadium is my best guess. They got one more game left. They flew another plane. Good for the guy to get that message across. And I have a feeling that's not going to be the last plane of the season. Like, comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or video drops. I appreciate y'all coming back. We're going to try to produce more Yankee content over the course of the next week. Some Cody Bellinger stuff maybe. And also we're looking at an end-of-the-year stream, probably December 29th. So nothing's official yet. Hoping to get some callers on and, just celebrate the past year as we always do. But I appreciate you guys for tuning in, especially during this time when the Giants suck and there's really nothing to talk about except going in circles. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to you soon.